They had to look at what they were good at and where they were good at it. And so they said that they want to focus on Asia during the strategy review in June. And I think there was a big period when a lot of the investment banks wanted to expand into Latin America. Brazil was very hot to invest in. You look at it now, the macroeconomic environment's changed there. So if you think, okay, where can I make some money, especially to offset the fines, like you mentioned, this would be one of the first places you can cut. So I think that's what they were thinking. It also offsets the fine, and I think that's a really important big deal because there may be more to come.
I mean, I think Brazil was a great story several years ago. The last 2 or 3 years have been really tough going for Brazil from a macro point of view. I think for the shareholders' point of view, they'd be quite glad to see that particular unit go. It's just not been particularly working for them. And I think Asia is really sort of HSBC's home, although they are a global bank. Asia is a home. And I think investors would much rather see them focus on Asia than disparate or too far-flung emerging market portfolio.
The cost for that still keeps rising, and it's really taken a big chunk out of the actual headline appearance of the investment banking numbers. They also did very well in wealth management in Asia, which really shows this pivot of the bank from its London headquarters really to focus on its markets in Asia, where it's much more profitable.
Always had sort of in the past anyway these sort of global aspirations when we talked about bulge bracket banks, etc. But their forays abroad have not always been terribly happy. And the core of the bank, the old Hong Kong Shanghai Bank and its Asian business, and the other core, the Midland Bank and its UK business, they've always done really relatively well. But forays into the US, most obviously, have always come a cropper. And same with sort of, other sort of more tentative forays into Latin America, Turkey and other places like that. So it seems that, like many banks, in a more regulatory, challenging world, it's not necessarily worth being big for the sake of being big.
There's been a massive cultural change within the investment banks. Obviously I feel it. We have to do a huge amount of training. There's a massive increase in the number of actual prosecutions, I think, of bankers who've misbehaved. And I think we're all very aware that the culture has to change. And I think it has changed. And I don't think there's going to be as much of this litigation in future that we've seen in the past.